When a printed pivot table runs to more than one page, it can be difficult to remember which columns represent which data. In this movie, I'll show you how to set printing options that make your printed pivot tables easier to understand. My sample file is the Print Options 0702 workbook, and you can find it in the Chapter 7 folder of the Exercise Files collection. This workbook contains a pivot table that extends beyond one printed page, and if I scroll down, you can see that I have all products within various categories, and the products are named by stock keeping unit. So I'll scroll back up to the top using my mouse's scroll wheel. If I want to print the pivot table or the worksheets that it's on, I can press Control-P, and I see the preview over on the right. Everything looks great on the first page. It's easy to understand. But if I click the Next Page button to go to page 2, I'll see that I don't have any headers at all at the top. I don't know, although I can probably guess that I have total price, and I know my data, so I know it's a stock keeping unit, but anyone who's not familiar with it might not be aware. However, there are some printing options that I can set to get rid of that problem. So I'll click the Go Back button to go back to the worksheet, and with any cell in the pivot table selected, I will go to the Analyze Contextual tab of the ribbon, and all the way to the left in the pivot table group, I will click the main body of the Options button. The pivot table options dialog box appears, and I can get to the printing settings by clicking the Printing tab. You'll see there are 3 checkboxes that you can select. The first one is currently unselected, and I prefer to leave it that way, and that is to print the Expand or Collapse buttons, that is Show in High Detail, when they're displayed on a pivot table. When I'm working in a pivot table, I do like to be able to show in high detail, but when I'm printing it, I already have the layout that I want, can't do anything with them anyway, so I choose not to print them. The second option, and I always leave this selected, is to repeat row labels on each printed page. That makes the data easier to read, and I always leave it on. The last item is Set Print Titles, and that is unselected. That's the setting that you need to turn on to repeat headers, that is column headers, at the top of each printed page. So I will select the Set Print Titles checkbox and click OK. And now when I press Control-P, everything looks good on page 1, but now when I click the Next Page button, it's not quite right. You'll see that I just have row labels and sum of total price, but I have no idea that I'm still in solar panels. So what happened? Let's go back. I'll click the Go Back button, and I will explain. I am currently viewing this pivot table in compact view, and what you can see is that the label here, batteries, is on the same level as far as organization goes. It's in the same column as the SKUs below it. So in other words, Excel did not identify that batteries is in fact a header. So how do we fix that? Well, to do that, we need to change the pivot table layout. So I'll go to the Design Contextual tab of the ribbon. This is while a pivot table cell is selected. And I will click the Report Layout button, and I'll show an outline form. What you see now is that category and batteries are on different levels, and also the subtotal is at the top. I'll leave it that way for now, but now when I press Control-P and I see the print preview, page 1 looks like it did before, except that the subtotals are at the top of the group. And if I click the Next Page button, I have my category and solar panels. I don't have my subtotal at the top because that's on the previous page, but if I want to fix that, I can click the Go Back button again, and then on the Design Contextual tab, I'll click Subtotals, click Show All Subtotals at Bottom of Group. Now I'll press Control-P, and everything looks good here, and when I click the Next Page button, I see that I have my subtotal at the bottom, and I also have solar panels, the category, repeated at the top. I don't want to print, so I'll click the Go Back button. Printing a pivot table presents your report in a fixed form, but you should consider having Excel print the pivot table's headers at the top of each page so you don't have to flip to the first page to remind yourself which values each column contains.